Hello and welcome to Take Time. I'm your host Patrick Marlatt, and let's talk about the Tropics. Specifically, Tropic rubber straps from the 60s and 70s. These were hyper popular rubber strap offerings. They're known for their ridged sides and the basket woven centers, as well as the multitude of perforations they came with. And if you bought a vintage diver, you've likely received one on one of these straps, especially if it's from that era. Well, recently these straps have picked up a lot of favor in the aftermarket world, and one of my favorite brands is reproducing them now, and that brand is Uncle Seiko. Today we're looking at Uncle Seiko's take on the Tropic rubber strap. And as you guys already know here on the channel, I like to start with the bad and then move on to the good before giving my final verdict on a review item. So let's start with the bad first. I'm happy to report there's not much by way of bad to state. However, there are a few bad things. So I have a 22 millimeter offering on my Seiko SRP Turtle here. One of the first things I'd like to state is that the buckle that came with this strap is a tad too small for the strap itself, and maybe you can see what I'm talking about here. For some reason, this buckle was machined just a little too large. It looks like it would have fit better on a 23 millimeter strap, but for some reason, the buckle's just a little loose in here. Now, this might be by design. If it was, I wouldn't understand why, but it is just a little bit larger than the strap itself. Now, while this isn't a serious bad note, it is a minor one that is worth mentioning. And now it doesn't affect the wearability of the strap in general, so it's not horrific. Again, not a seriously bad note. Now, as we all know, Uncle Seiko offers a whole host of rubber strap options. As the name would suggest, there are a lot of recreation straps that are more accurate to rubber straps that were offered on Seiko's earlier divers. So this is pretty new for Larry to be doing. But one of the common things I've found with his rubber straps, and this is neither bad nor good, but something to note, is that they are rather stiff. These are not the most supple straps on the market, and because of that, they're not always the most immediately wearable. They do take a little bit of time to start to bend and fit your wrist nicely. So don't expect these to be comfortable right off the bat. However, the more you wear these, the more they will fit to the size of your wrist, or rather the proportions of your wrist. So it is something, a bad note, that can be overcome with repeated use. Just note that out of the bag, it's going to be a little stiff. That's okay, but it's not going to be very comfortable during that period. Another bad note I'd like to mention is actually about the ends that meet your watch head. You'll notice that the straps themselves are actually pretty thin, but they do increase in thickness as they reach the watch head. And this isn't problematic when it comes to your typical sports watch or even your typical Seiko diver. However, that thick end of the strap isn't likely going to fit every watch that's 22 millimeters in lug width, especially if that watch has a very shallow lug area. So don't expect this to fit every watch. Do have other watches that could utilize it, but because it's so thick, you may have to plan in advance what watch this is going to go on. But if you're like me and decided to put it on a sports watch, or in this instance, my Seiko diver, it's not going to be an issue at all. And seriously, those are the only real bad notes I have to mention about this strap. It is not your typical Uncle Seiko strap. I actually love the fact when he emailed me about these that he was doing them, because I never had a chance to experience a Tropic rubber strap. I've seen them, I know what they look like. And what's interesting about Uncle Seiko's offering, or Larry's offering here, is that it isn't as traditional as the originals. Now, while it does offer that awesome vintage Tropic rubber strap aesthetic with that basket weave in the center and the ridges on the side, I have to say that the ridges on this model aren't what I've typically seen from a Tropic rubber strap. Normally, they just protrude out, almost like scales on the back of a dinosaur. Now, you'll notice as we look at the top end of our rubber strap here, and the same is true for the bottom strap, that those ridges are angled towards the watch head. And I'll illustrate why this is a particularly good note in a wrist shot upcoming, but do note that this design is really awesome. I'd also like to state, as we are looking at the strap here, that it is extremely, extremely wearable. Despite not being the most comfortable strap out of the bag, the overall size, which is, by the way, 78 millimeters on the short end here and 128 millimeters on the long end, is going to fit most wrist sizes, and the multitude of perforations allow for both nice breathing for your wrist, but also just a variety of wearing options. If you have a wrist that's 7¼ like mine, it's going to fit really well. But again, with most of Larry's straps, they all fit extremely well. He's always done a good job of making sure that there's enough perforations and that they're spaced nice and evenly to wear well on your wrist. And this is no different. And another thing I want to mention about Larry's straps, assuming you're buying this Uncle Seiko strap for a Seiko, the spring bars, the diameter of the holes where the spring bars go, they're measured out to utilize fatty spring bars, the 2.5 millimeter thick spring bars that come with your Seiko watch, which is awesome for us Seiko wearers. And if you don't utilize 2.5 millimeter spring bars, guess what? He gives you a pair when you purchase the strap. So you're not SOL if that's the case. But if you are a Seiko user like myself and you're buying this for your dive watch, don't worry, you've got backup spring bars. If you didn't have them to begin with, I don't know how, you get a pair with the strap. So really cool stuff there. Another great note about the Tropic rubber offering is that he offers them in a variety of sizes. There's 19 millimeters, 20 millimeters, and 22 millimeters. Now 20 and 22 we all know about. We all have watches that utilize lug widths that are 20 and 22, but 19 is particularly special, at least for me, because as you guys know, if you've watched the channel before, I am a Seiko collector. I'm a huge Seiko enthusiast, particularly when it comes to their late 60s, early 70s designs. Nearly all of those older designs and even a lot of their modern designs utilize 19 millimeter lug width. So it's great that we have that option. As a matter of fact, Larry sent me a couple of these straps and I've been wearing the 19 millimeter option on my Grand Seiko. Larry, it looks really good on the Dragon Head. I'm told that my SBGR 017 is called the Dragon Head. I'm only going to refer to it as that from now on, but it looks extremely good on that watch. The simplicity of this overall design, the Tropic strap, looks good on a variety of watch heads. So it's awesome that he's providing 19. I mean, it only makes sense that Uncle Seiko would provide a strap that's perfect for your older or new Seiko. So thank you for the 19 millimeter option. Not a lot of people make 19 millimeter options, so that's really awesome. Now, before I move on to my final good note, I'm going to show you guys a wrist shot so you can make out what this might look like on your wrist. Now, this is what the watch strap is going to look like for all of your admirers, and when you are going to admire it, it's going to look a little something like this. And as you can tell, the 22 millimeter lugs on this Seiko Turtle pair extremely well with this Tropic rubber strap. It's a good overall aesthetic for this watch. Again, because of how simple this design is, it just looks good with a lot of watch offerings. And I think that's why they used it so commonly back in the 60s and 70s. It's just a good looking strap. But as you can see on the wrist, those ridges are all over the place. They're never uncomfortable. They never snag on anything. It's never ever problematic if that was ever a concern. Now, this is exactly where I wear the strap when it's on my wrist. And as you can see, there is one floating keeper between you and the tongue of this strap. And what I love so much about the ridges on this strap is that they work in tandem with the keeper to hold this thing in place. And here's what I mean. When it's on my wrist, when I'm going about my day, I find that these ridges, as the tongue naturally rolls back up, the ridges stop the keeper from easily falling off of the tongue of the strap. This is a problem I find with a lot of metal keepers and other rubber strap offerings. These keepers generally like to fly off the strap, particularly if you have, a looser or more supple strap. But because of the density and thickness and ruggedness of the strap, its overall construction, and these teeth here on the end, these ridges, it holds that keeper in place quite nicely. And I love that about this Tropic rubber strap. It is a great overall design. Again, I never have this keeper fly off the strap, and that is really, really rare to say, which is sad to say, but it's extremely hard to find. So thank you, Larry, again for this design. I love how the strap wears. One of the final good notes I'd like to mention about this Tropic rubber strap actually has nothing to do with the rubber strap itself. It's actually about Larry. Larry offers some of the best customer service I've ever been provided. He's so quick about emailing people back, and he's so courteous with his time. It's just a really great experience working with Larry when I get his straps in. I feel very, very blessed to have his offerings in for review all the time. And I think he offers a really excellent product to not only Seiko collectors, but anyone who's interested in just a nice accessory for their watch. So definitely check out Uncle Seiko's site. I'm going to leave a link obviously in the description, but if you wanted to buy from a brand you could trust, I feel like that's why many of us turn to particular brands. There's sort of trust we develop with that name. I think Uncle Seiko is one of those brands that you can trust. Now, the last thing I want to mention about this rubber strap is the cost. These run about $39. Now, that's not crazy for a rubber strap by any stretch of the imagination. I've paid twice as much for other offerings that I haven't enjoyed quite as much as this. So, for $40, I think you're getting a really good deal, especially if you have a 19, 20, or 22 millimeter lug width diver. There's a good range of sizes here that are able to fit on any of your dive watches. Again, they don't need to be a Seiko. They just need to have a large enough lug width and spacing to fit this strap. But if yours does, it's an awesome offering. It's very, very nice on the wrist. I think the wearability is great on the strap. And the overall aesthetic, even on this watch, this isn't the rubber offering it came with, nor does it look like it, but this Tropic strap looks good, really good on it. I'm really a big fan of these Tropic straps. I need to get more in, actually. It's funny that this is the first I've ever experienced, and it's odd to me that it's coming from Uncle Seiko, because I don't think Seiko ever utilized Tropic rubber straps. I may be mistaken, but I've seen a variety of rubber straps from Seiko. They're always trying to do something different, but I'd never seen a Tropic strap offering from them, and it looks really good on their watches. So if they hadn't in the past, I'm not sure why they don't make these stock, but if you wanted this option, it's there for you now. At any rate, guys, if you found this review insightful or in the least entertaining, feel free to hit that like button. It looks a little something like this. If you have friends, forums, or groups that were interested in getting a Tropic rubber strap, especially if they have a watch that utilizes a 19mm lug width, maybe send them this video to give them at least my opinions on the strap. I know there have been a ton of reviews already on forums and also here on the YouTubes that they could view, but if they wanted someone's opinion who is a casual wearer of Uncle Seiko, feel free to send them this video. This is definitely one of the better rubber offerings I've received from him. Also, if this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome. I do videos like this twice a week, so if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to hit that subscribe button. And if you like the content that much, hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button, and you'll be notified when my videos release immediately. Again, my name is Patrick Marlatt, and thank you for the time.